So now that we have colliders, a base level, and a way to preview our level, let's talk about making our level a little bit more visually interesting using the props in a process we call set dressing the level. You can see I've already spent a little bit of time set dressing my own level. And let's just take a brief little tour in our first person camera view. I start out and immediately I have what I call the pump room, which has a bunch of different pipes, barrels, a little bit of rubble, and it adds a little bit more flavor to an otherwise empty, boring room. So let's walk around our wall, our elliptical track right here. I have pieces of debris laid out, more barrels, some debris, just to add a little bit of spice to everything. And here I have a control room with paper strewn about, broken control panels, a little bit of rubble turned up on its side here to make it look like a disaster happened in this area. And on down here, I have just some grates on the wall leading to our escape hallway. Alright, I'm going to press Control P on my keyboard to get it to stop playing. That's a shortcut if you don't want to press the little play button right there. So, set dressing is really cool and all, but we have to consider a few things when we're set dressing. First, we have to figure out what kind of materials we're going to need. So we have to make our custom materials for things such as our barrels. They have a barrel material I've made. And remember our props material we had for lights? Well, if we select this material, we can see that it has not only the light, but it has our control panel material. It has our pipe material. See? Same material in play here. It even has our papers and our grate. It's a multi-use material. And whenever you're creating and designing your own levels, you're going to want to think of just packing as many different props into one texture sheet as possible. Because every time you have a new material in your scene, it ups the amount of draw calls, which ups the amount of frame rates that your game devours. So it's a nice way to package up all of your textures here. Another thing you have to consider are colliders for your objects. So what I like to do is, whenever I have a barrel, I like just to bring one out, and then we have a nice capsule collider on it. Let's go ahead and remove that, and I'll show us how we can put a capsule collider on an object. If I look at this shape, it looks pretty cylindrical. So I want a cylinder collider. Let's go ahead and add a cylinder collider. So we go to Add Component, Physics. There's no cylinder collider. Well, that's when we use the capsule collider. The capsule collider is basically a cylinder with rounded tops. So what we're going to do is we're just going to tweak inside of the inspector the different aspects of my capsule collider. The radius, height, and you don't have to get it exactly on the object. We just need something for the player to be able to bump up against and not go past. There we go. And if it's not pointing in the right direction, say it's pointing this way, our direction, we can shift it on which axis it goes up and down on. There we go. If you need to move it up and down for whatever reason, you can do that as well within the center. And I've basically done that with almost every single prop here. And for the pipe prop, I just added a simple box collider. Remember that collider we used with the walls? Well, if you change its dimensions enough, you can make it into any kind of rectangular shape that you want, or any kind of box shape that you want. That's just enough collision to be able to detect those pipes right there. So let's go and let's look at this rubble right here. Right now it doesn't have a collider on there. What kind of collider would work best here? A mesh collider? A mesh collider would be a nightmare. Look how many different vertices, and look how complex this material is. The player doesn't really need to be able to jump up on top of here and be able to weave through this wiring. He just needs to be able to bump into this whole object singularly, you know, something just to keep him out of the way of the whole debris field here. So let's select this rubble. Let's go to Add Component, Physics. Let's deal with a nice Sphere Collider. Within this Sphere Collider, I can tweak its radius. I can tweak where it's laying on top of the debris field. So I can make it kind of cut through the floor here. Tweak its X and Y. There we go. That's just enough to make sure that the player can't walk through the debris field and he's going to get hung up on it. It saves the rendering engine and the game loop a lot of programming processing power. So just have fun with your set dressing. And some props, such as this paper, they don't need any colliders at all, since it's believable to just be able to walk on them. My panels have box colliders. My rubble should all have sphere colliders on them. Let's create one more sphere collider for you. So go to Add Component, Physics, Sphere Collider. That's way too big. So let's tweak it a little bit. Let's bring it down. And there we go. Maybe down a little bit more. Just enough to make sure we're not clipping through this debris field right here. Alright, great. Alright, so that's a little bit of a way where you can set dress your level with different props. So go through your level now, make it look interesting. Hopefully when you were building your level you had an idea of certain themes that each room could have, and you can use the props to reinforce those themes. For instance, this is a control room with panels and papers everywhere. This is the warehouse type pump room where maintenance work is done, and this and that. In the next chapter we're going to go through how we can light our level